I thought I knew what I'd lose after divorce. I had made my mental list, the way you do when you're trying to prepare yourself for something you know is going to hurt. The house, maybe, some of the money, weekends that used to feel ordinary. I thought I had accounted for most of it. I was wrong about nearly all of it. And the things I got wrong weren't the big, obvious losses that everyone talks about. They were quieter than that. And because they were quiet, they had more room to settle in. I was 71 when my marriage ended. 43 years. That is not a short chapter. That is most of a life lived alongside another person. And when it ended, I told myself I was prepared because I had watched other men go through it. I had seen friends divorce in their 50s, their 60s, and I thought I understood what was waiting on the other side. What I did not understand, what nobody who had been through it ever quite said out loud, was that the losses you expect barely scratch the surface of what you actually leave behind. The first thing that surprised me was how much of my identity had been living inside the marriage without me knowing it. Not my name, not my career, not anything I would have pointed to if someone asked who I was. It was subtler than that. It was the way I moved through a day, the way I made decisions, the way I understood myself in relation to the world. For 43 years I had been one half of something, and I had stopped noticing that I was doing it, the way you stop noticing the weight of a coat you've been wearing since morning. When that was gone, I did not feel free in the way some men describe. I felt unrecognizable to myself. I would catch my reflection in a window somewhere, and for just a moment, I genuinely wasn't sure who I was looking at. People told me I would rediscover myself, and I did not have the energy to explain to them that what I was feeling was not a loss of self-knowledge. I knew who I was. I just did not know who I was without her. Those are two entirely different problems, and the second one does not have a clean answer. The friendships were the next thing. I had not expected that either, and it hit harder than almost anything else. We had built our social world together the way most married couples do, without realizing it. And when the marriage ended, the social world did not split evenly down the middle. It didn't split at all, really. It just became uncomfortable for everyone. And discomfort, when you are in your 70s and people have a finite amount of energy left for managing things, tends to resolve itself by quietly closing doors. Invitations stopped coming. Not cruelly. Not with any malice I could point to, but they stopped. Couples who had been a part of our lives for decades suddenly did not know quite where to put me, and rather than work out the geometry of it, they simply let the distance grow. I understood it, I even forgave it, but understanding something and being unhurt by it are not the same thing, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't hurt. What I lost in those friendships was not just the company, it was the shared history. These were people who had known me across decades, who had been at my children's weddings, who remembered things about my life that I myself had half forgotten. When they drifted away, they took those memories with them, in a sense. Because there was no longer anyone to sit across a table from and say, "Do you remember when?" Memory, I have come to believe, is not a solo act. It lives in the confirmation of other people. And when those people go, the memories do not disappear exactly, but they become lonelier, less solid, harder to hold. Then there was the relationship with my children, which changed in ways I had not remotely anticipated. My children were adults when we divorced, grown, with their own families, and I had assumed that meant the divorce would land differently on them than it would have on young children. I was right that it landed differently. I was wrong that it landed more easily. Adults have opinions, they have loyalties they cannot always name, and do not always understand themselves. They have their own grief about what the end of your marriage means for their understanding of their own childhood. I watched my children try to navigate something that had no good path through it, and I watched them, without meaning to, begin to hold me at a slightly different angle than they had before. Not coldly, not unkindly, but differently. The ease that had been between us had a new layer of something careful over it, and careful is not the same as close. I want to be honest about this because I think it is the part that men in their 70s are least prepared for and most reluctant to admit. I had thought of myself as a good father. I still think I was. But divorce at this age reframes things, whether you want it to or not. And my children were suddenly looking at me and at their mother and at 43 years of family history, trying to figure out what they were actually looking at. That process is not quick, and it is not painless to watch. The practical losses came too, and I will not pretend they were nothing. The house where we had raised our children was sold. The routines that had organized my weeks for decades dissolved almost overnight. The particular rhythm of a shared life, dinner at a certain time, certain sounds in the morning, the knowledge that someone would be there when you came home, all of that disappeared at an age when I had neither the energy nor the inclination to build new rhythms from scratch. I was 71 years old. I had not expected to be starting over. And starting over at 71 is a fundamentally different exercise than starting over at 40. At 40, you have momentum. At 71, you have clarity, which is not always the comfort people seem to think it is. What I have found, after 9 years of living in this new arrangement that I never chose and never wanted, is that the losses do not disappear. They do not heal in the way a wound heals. They become something you carry more quietly. And quietly is different from lightly. There are mornings when I still feel the strangeness of a life that did not go the way I had expected it to go. And I suspect that feeling will be with me for whatever years I have left. But I have also found, and this I did not expect either, that the people who do come into your life after something like this carry a certain quality of presence that is hard to describe. They know you in your stripped-down form, without the context of everything you used to be. And something is clarifying about being known that way, even if it took more loss than I ever anticipated to get there. If you are somewhere in the middle of this, or approaching it, or watching someone you love go through it, I want you to know that the thing nobody warns you about is not the obvious grief. It is the secondary grief. The grief for the self you were inside the marriage, for the friendships that cannot survive the rearrangement, for the ease with your children that takes years to find its way back. That grief is real. It deserves to be named, and you are not weak for feeling it at any age.